Hey guys, welcome to tonight's live chat. I see some of you in the chat box, which is awesome. I'm actually just signing on just a little bit earlier than 7 o'clock to give myself a buffer. There's always something technological going on. I want to give you guys time to sign on and get acclimated. So it looks like we're doing okay. I am going to jump in before anything technological goes wrong on my end. And I want to introduce this topic to you guys, okay? This topic is not just about narcissism. It is also not just about fake people, if you will. Um, when I use the term fake, I mean individuals who are unauthentic, who tend to be very plastic. They tend to be very self consumed. And there's absolutely no empathy, absolutely no ability to connect with other people. And these individuals may have what we call a curated exterior. A curated exterior. Let me explain that just briefly before I get further into this for you guys. Narcissistic individuals or narcissistic family members, or if you're in a relationship with someone, they tend to have multiple sides to themselves. It's not like, you and me, for example, we have a bad day every now and then. We're a little cranky, we're a little irritable, we're angry, we're crying, we're sad, whatever. Or there may be days when you're just a little extra. You know what I mean? You're just a little over the top in some of your emotional reactions, your behaviors. It's not like the individual is going through that. An individual who's fake or unauthentic or ingenuine, they tend to have multiple faces, multiple sides, and they tend to switch their facade or their persona with different people. And it's not like, a normal, if you will, for lack of a clinical term, individual would change depending on what person they're with or group they're with. It's not that. It's, I have these many faces, and so I can't really help if my many faces are fake people, right? Tomorrow I may be Amber, the next day I may be Kevin, the next day I may be Tom. You may feel like I'm a different person every day, every minute, every second, every month. That's just how I function. And so narcissistic individuals who are quote unquote fake individuals, they wear a false facade, and they wear it in such a way that you may feel like you're communicating with a different person every second. I'll give you an example of this as the rest of you sign on and get started. I once had a client who was very, very narcissistic, and they're one of the reasons why I don't work with narcissistic individuals. They trigger me. But this individual came in for therapy. She was married to a high powered attorney. Her daughter was going through medical school. She came to me because of some issues within her marriage. And every single session, guys, was a different person. One session, she would come in being really dejected, despondent, depressed, tearful, sad, wanting to say prayer, wanting to talk about some Bible verses that she read and scriptures that she really felt connected to. I welcomed all of it. I said, oh, this is great. Next week, she comes in, she's mean, disrespectful. Everything I would say was the wrong button to push. She was very confrontational and argumentative, stormed out of her session when I brought up the possibility that her relationships are failing because of narcissistic tendencies. She left out of the office really upset. This was, I'm going to say, over 8 years ago. Then she would come back the next day. Oh, you're the best therapist I've ever had. I'm so glad that you're who you are. You're so talented, so, well put together, so modest, so down to earth. So it was compliments that session. She was a very sweet person in that session. Next session, totally different. And so every single session, I needed so much supervision from other therapists at the time because every single session was a different individual. Not like her mood is changing. It's not like she's, what we call going through labile moods, meaning roller coaster and flexible moods. It's not like she was going through that. It was also not bipolar disorder where she swings from one pole to the next. It wasn't that. She was not a substance abuser. She was not doing drugs. No alcohol, no marijuana, no meth, no mushrooms, none of that stuff. She was just very, very narcissistic. And so here's what's interesting. She would swing from overt narcissism to covert narcissism. And I found that extremely interesting because some sessions she would come across as very self-conceited, very fake, very plastered, very phony, inauthentic. And then the next session, she was more on, I think, the spectrum of covert narcissism. You couldn't tell because she seemed like this really pious, kind, modest, humble individual. And so this is the client that I had over 8 years ago. Very difficult to deal with, tiring. And I'm sure those of you, I'm going to go to the chat box in a little bit here. I'm sure those of you who are dealing with family members, people in relationships, coworkers who are like this, fake, unauthentic, ingenuine, I'm sure that they have tired you out. One of the things that I always teach families, if they're dealing with narcissistic family members, is you're going to feel like the individual is an emotional vampire, an emotional vampire. They are sucking the life out of you, the energy, the motivation, the desire to communicate with them because they are so very inauthentic, and nobody wants that. Now, research in psychology suggests that authenticity and inauthenticity, or fake or phony individuals versus those who are more genuine, there's one characteristic, I'll call it, that fake people tend to not have. And that is known as self-awareness. It is a very simple term, right, guys? Self-awareness. You can't be genuine if you don't know who you are. And so individuals who are fake, individuals who are ingenuine, and we're going to talk about a lot more of this in a second here, individuals who are narcissistic, covert, overt, they tend to be individuals who lack self-awareness. And it's not like they can't develop self-awareness. If you're dealing with a narcissistic fake person, it's not like they can't necessarily understand themselves or grow to understand why they do what they do. It's they don't want to. That's the issue. They don't want to. They're comfortable where they are. Now, the concept of inauthenticity or being ingenuine comes from existentialism, which is, basically this philosophical and spiritual mindset of life and how it goes. And so the concept of being unauthentic or ingenuine stems from a mismatch between values and norms, which are not congruent with who you really are. So let me put that a different way. The degree to which values and norms are congruent with who you are is authenticity. That I have this experience in my life. I hold these values, I hold these norms, I respect these things, and that makes me who I am. And therefore, I'm genuine because I have the same values, I have the same norms, social norms, and they all fit together. It's congruent. A fake person doesn't have congruent norms, values, and behaviors. They tend to be very mismatched, confused, all over the place, really lacking self-awareness, to put it in a more how am I trying to say this? I can't even think of the word, guys. I probably need to take a nap. Simplistic. That's the word I'm looking for. To put it in a more simplistic way. Okay. The curated exterior is a fake person really kind of creating their own persona, giving you what you don't really want to see. They're showing you all those pieces of themselves that they have curated, they've created to cloak who they really are. And so research in psychology says these kind of individuals who have a fake curated exterior tend to experience unstable views. They can't really be firm and concrete in anything. They're constantly moving all over the place, constantly confused, constantly in this nebulous state of existence, because again, they don't have self-awareness. So fake people, phony people, ingenuine people, narcissists, these kind of individuals have unstable views and values and behaviors. There's definitely a lot of denial. They engage in that a ton. We're going to get into this in a little bit here. There's no accountability, because why would a fake person want to take accountability? It goes against the image that they want you to believe about them, right? So there's no accountability. And they also tend to be very shallow individuals who are confused about what life really is. I was kind of brushing up on the research on fake people and phony people and inauthenticity yesterday, and I read an article that said that most individuals who are shallow and narcissistic and really just focused on the exterior and how you perceive them, some of them, and we're going to talk about this tomorrow, they tend to be what we call vulnerable narcissists. And these are individuals who really seem on the exterior to be dejected, despondent, depressed, insecure, low self-esteem. They're helpless and hopeless, and some of them are even suicidal at times. They give off that energy that says, I'm a very lowly individual, quote unquote, lowly individual. The reality is that they aren't, because they house within themselves. And again, we'll talk about this tomorrow too. They house within themselves a superiority that doesn't match their curated exterior, right? So they're giving off this, attitude, this exaggerated self-appraisal. I'm dropping new terms, guys, catch it. This exaggerated self-appraisal of, I'm depressed, I'm sad, I have low self-esteem, I'm helpless, I'm hopeless, I'm a nobody, I'm poor, I'm A, B, and C, right? They are giving you that curated exterior, but on the inside of them, guys, housed on the inside, deep inside of a small pocket in their heart, they have all of this self superiority, that I am better, I need attention, I want to be accepted. I get a lot of attention acting like I'm depressed. I get a lot of attention because I'm constantly talking about how insecure I am. I get a lot of attention because I'm hopeless. I get a lot of attention when I go to the doctor's office and I get one of those surveys and I check off that I'm depressed every day. I cry every day. I'm hopeless. And the doctor's attention to all the details that I've given him says a lot. That's attention on me. These individuals may also feel like, I can push around the therapist, push around the medical doctor, push around my family, push around my friends and coworkers, because I'm special. Even though I have this curated exterior, this facade that I am depressed with low self-esteem. Fake people, they're very interesting. The psychology of fake people is quite interesting. And so tomorrow, that's why I want to talk about vulnerable narcissists tomorrow, within a family, within relationships, because these individuals are so tricky and it's hard to identify them. I think it took me years, and I've been doing this in different capacities as a therapist for 15 years. And let me tell you, I sometimes become deceived, and I'm going to go to the chat box in a little bit, guys. I become deceived sometimes, especially when I'm exhausted. I'm just having one of those months where I'm just exhausted. I am deceived sometimes by vulnerable narcissists, by fake individuals, by ingenuine people, because I'm human, right? And just like with you, who wants to look at a person who visibly appears one way and think the opposite, right? So we kind of accept that curated exterior, whether that's I'm dejected, despondent, and hopeless and lowly, or it's I'm really confident and I'm wonderful and I'm attractive and I'm suave, right? Whatever that curated exterior is, we don't want to believe that. We want to believe that people have a good conscience, that they have high values, that they are modest and humble when they need to be, that they're genuine. But sadly, It's not that way. I'm sure as I'm going through some of this description, you guys already are saying, wow, I know somebody just like that. They seem to throw around their intelligence, they throw around their attractiveness, they throw around their handsomeness, if that's even a word. They throw around that, they have friends who are on the best team or the best this or the best that, even though they say they have low self-esteem. But I sense something totally different. Or I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, oh, yeah, my dad, my mom's very fake. They show a certain face to the world. And as soon as they come into the house, or as soon as they are hidden from the world, they act terribly. And that's because at the core of who they are, there's an incongruence between their behavior, their values, and the norms that they should be following in society. There's an incongruence. And so they're fake because of that. One last thing before I go to the chat box, welcome you and talk to you a little bit. And then we're going to go back to this. Let me also drop this here that some individuals who are fake are going through what we call an existential crisis. An existential crisis. That is basically an individual who is struggling to find authenticity. They can't find themselves. So they take a little bit of Aunt Betsy over there. They take a little bit of John over there. They take a little bit of Kelly over there. Then they go on social media and they say, oh, I like that. And they take a little bit of that, a little bit of that. And before you know it, here's their curated exterior, their identity. It has many cracks in it. That's why they're fake. But they don't know how to sometimes get out of that. And if you're dealing with a narcissistic family member, parent, friend, you're in a relationship with somebody who's a narcissist, it's really going to be difficult for them to find themselves. Because keep in mind, at the core of a narcissist is an unstable self-image. Even though they sometimes throw up there that they think they're important, at the core of who they are, there's an existential crisis. They don't know who they are. So they curate how they want you to see them. So it's a deceptive facade. All right, guys, I'm going to go to the chat box, see how you guys are doing. Sammy. And before I start talking comments, let me just give you a little bit of an overview. Okay, guys, I'm going to skip this whole part that's important. When I go back to the content, I'm going to talk to you guys in the chat box, then I'm going to go back to the content. When I come back to the content, I'm going to give you a listing, a literal bullet point list of all the common behaviors that psychology has highlighted as fake, ingenuine, unauthentic. Okay. Then I'm going to give you some information on what the problem is with these kind of individuals. They don't always have to be narcissists. They could be as normal as tomorrow. But there's something going on at the core. So I'm going to highlight that. And then I'm going to give you some insight into what it is that you may need to process about somebody in your own life. Okay, so we're going to get into that. Sammy, I'm so sorry. I'm so late. I wish I could come on here around 4:30 or 5, but I'm often seeing clients, or I'm just interacting with my own family and doing some work at home. So I often end up having late live chats. I'm sorry about that, but I'm always glad to see you. Always glad to see you. Sylvia Love Jones, hello and welcome to tonight's live chat. Glad to have you back. Travis Hall, haven't seen you in a while. Glad to have you back tonight. Napalm 1334, hello and welcome. I also see Sun and Sunflowers. Starburst, oh my God, one of my clients would totally love that. Welcome to tonight's live chat. Cam, so glad to see you. Good evening. I'm not stressing. Oh man, I wish I could say that. Glad to have you. Says, what do you think the dynamics between men and women in regards to this kind of abuse? Well, okay, so let me just kind of narrow this down to narcissistic and genuine individuals. There are gender differences when it comes to narcissistic behaviors and individuals who are fake and genuine, phony, whatever you want to call it. Research suggests that there's more men. Sorry, guys, I'm so sorry, but this is the research. There's more men who tend to have a very narcissistic, plastered self-facade or image than women. Now, I've always been You know, I'm by no stretch of the imagination am I a tomboy, but I've never gotten along with or been interested in a lot of females. Why? Because they're so dramatic and so emotional. So over the years, I've often hung out with the guys, hung out with the boys, and I don't see, just among my own experiences, I don't see the narcissism in the same way that I do with females. Not all females are like this because I've had some really good female friends, but the very jealous hearted, competitive, shallow and vain, superficial women, they tend to be very, very fake, phony, and genuine, narcissistic in a different way. Theirs is more of a social ostracism. Like, I'm going to block you out because you're too pretty, or I'm going to block you out because you're too smart. And I'm worried about my husband over there, my boyfriend over there. I'm worried you're going to get this and I'm not. They have a very shallow way that they are. With men, they're a little bit different. They tend to, what's the word I'm looking for? They tend to compete with each other in a different way. Well, I bought A, B, and C, or, I bought this house for 1.2 million, or I'm driving this car. There's differences in how they communicate. Men tend to be more genuine, I think, than women. Women tend to sometimes, and this is according to research, run with being phony, fake, and ingenuine. This is just kind of how women have been socialized in society. Put on that bright smile and act like you're a go-getter, put on that face and keep going. Whereas men are kind of like, what? I really don't care. You know what I mean, guys? So I'm not stressing. There's gender differences, and we'll get into that a little bit more tomorrow. But I do lean towards, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I lean more towards women as being the more narcissistic, shallow, jealous, competitive, inferior women or individuals versus men. I don't see men being as detrimental as women. And that's backed by research. But what's also backed by research is that men tend to be more narcissistic than women. I'll make sure I put that research in the description box. Erica in Lusk, hello and welcome to tonight's live chat. Glad to see you. I don't ever remember seeing you, so welcome. Says, who determines what is over the top for an individual? Well, according to psychology, social norms determines that. What's your cultural norms? What's your ethnic norms? What's your social norms? What does your society, your country, your environment, your community say is over the top? We tend to go by that. So I would say it's different it's different for different individuals, right? Maybe your culture, for example, says being over the top is one way, whereas maybe my culture says being over the top is accepted or valuable. So social norms, cultural norms, ethnic norms. Shay Wallace, hello and welcome to tonight's live chat. Glad to have you. Ponytail, oh my God. That's so cute. Welcome to tonight's live chat. Yeah, they trigger me a lot. I can't mesh with fake people. I just can't. Because anytime, and you guys may relate to this, which is why I'm bringing this up. And you as well, Ponytail, you say that they trigger you too. I can't mesh with phony people because it takes a lot of energy to deal with you. It takes a lot of energy. Why do I have to smile at you? Why do I have to laugh along with you? I've been in situations socially in my personal and professional life where sometimes laughing along is polite. But for me, over the years, and maybe for most of you, if I don't find it funny, don't look at me, because I'm not going to laugh with you. I think it's very draining. It's tiring. It's deflating. I'm not going to laugh just because you need a laugh, or just because you're looking for a laugh, or just because you want me to laugh. I'm not going to do that. It's too much energy. You know what I mean, guys? Being fake takes a lot of energy. It's like burning off a lot of steam. It's too much. Just be you. I'd rather you just be you and see how that goes, rather than be fake and phony and tire me out and everybody else. So yeah, they're very, very triggering. Eartha Page, hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Yes, I just started at 7 o'clock. I was late tonight. Dragon, glad to have you, by the way. Dragon Man Sasson, hello. Please don't remind me it's Friday the 13th. I'm not very superstitious, but today's been a day. Today has been a day. Welcome, Dragonman Assassin. Sun and Sunflower says, the fake and phony sounds like my sister, but her enablers would accuse me of being fake. I was so thrown off by that. Sometimes they will accuse you of being fake, right? Because if you're authentic and somebody else is being fake, who do you think is going to be shown up in that dynamic? It's probably going to be the fake person. So there's some toxic dynamics when you're in a relationship with somebody who's fake and phony and ingenuine and narcissistic. Because again, the more authentic you are, you show up that they're not. And that causes themselves and everybody else to second guess their exterior. You know what I mean, guys? Nancy R., hello and welcome to tonight's live chat. Glad to have you. All right, looking for comments. Intensity 21 Marks, hello and welcome. Glad to see you. Says, my family is a narcissistic family cult. A bunch of covert narcissists. Yeah. Yeah. They go on to say who need to be exposed. Yeah, good luck with that. Here's the thing, and I'm going to throw this in here tonight, but we're going to talk about it more tomorrow, guys. You never want to show up a narcissist because here's the problem. Narcissists, especially covert narcissists, and they tend to also be titled vulnerable narcissists, they exist in a way that once you show them up, you're asking for a quote unquote battle of the wits. You're asking for a battle or a fight or a confrontation because they're not going to allow you to show them up in any way. Again, keep this in mind. They have a curated exterior. And curated is really another way of saying a created exterior. So if they have this creative facade that cloaks them, you tearing it down is going to cause them to do what, right? So my therapeutic advice to most of my clients, or suggestions, I should say, when dealing with a covert narcissist is don't ever challenge them. It's okay for you to know that that is who they are. You want to work, if you can, around that arrogance, that self-centeredness, that fake, phony demeanor. You want to work around that. You don't necessarily want to trigger it, right? Because now you're causing an explosion. So we'll talk about that more tomorrow. You'll be able to hear what I actually mean by all of that. Shay Wallace says, the covert one scares me. They're harder to spot and do more damage, in my honest opinion. Yes, they do more damage. And they do more damage than any other narcissist because, I'm going to bring it up again, guys, the curated exterior is this, that I'm humble, I'm meek, I'm mild, I'm kind, I'm giving, I'm mature, every single thing that we want to see in other people, right? They know how to utilize that while kind of cloaking and keeping on the down low, for lack of a clinical term, keeping on the down low who they really are. You know, they are sneaky, they are dangerous, they are manipulative. These are the kind of individuals, once you start seeing who they really are, you just want to run, you know? Queen Common Sense, hello and welcome. Glad to see you back in tonight's live chat. I see Grow. Sup, Buttercup. Oh, that's so cute. Grow, that is so cute. Hope you're doing all right. And glad to have you tonight. Okay, Sayaban, I probably really messed that up. I'm sorry. I'm glad to have you tonight. Says, oh, that explains the differing opinion and actions. Yeah, let me throw in here briefly that most fake people, phony people, and genuine people, narcissistic individuals, they do have opposing views a lot. They do. And they also have, their views tend to be very incongruent with their behaviors, with their thought patterns. And that's why sometimes you may see a narcissist, an ingenuine or fake individual, you may see these people say one thing but do another, or do another and say one thing, because their behaviors, their thought patterns, their values, all of that, their ethics are incongruent with who they really are. So they can't keep up that facade. You end up seeing that they're straddling the fence, or they show you different sides of them in a way that makes you feel deceived. We're going to get into that more as well. Bantu Beauty, hello. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. All right, a few more comments. I'm looking for comments. Then I'm going to get back into the content. Cam says, my step-in-law apologized to us for her behaviors, saying she was going to communicate better. It's been over a year since contact. She posted online she was unapologetically, removing toxic people. Oh, wow. When the toxic person, Cam, is probably really her, right? Ooh, I don't even know what to say to that one. Goodness, Cam. Y'all's Royal Rose 22, hello and welcome. Glad to see you. I haven't seen you before, so welcome. Says, do narcissistic people know they are one? Oh, that's so good. Okay, I'm going to answer that in just a second. I've been wondering if I am one because of my upbringing. Okay. Number one, guys, and all of my clients at some point in time have asked me the same thing, whether they're the victim or they feel like they're the narcissist. So let me put the truth out here. If you're asking if you're a narcissist, you probably are not a narcissist. And here's why. Narcissists, as I said at the very beginning of this live chat, narcissists have one thing. They don't have one thing that's so important for authenticity, and that is self-awareness. When you start asking, am I a narcissist? I don't think you are, because now what you're showing is that you have self-awareness. You have the ability to take a look at yourself. Narcissists have issues with really identifying how they behave in social situations. They don't see themselves. Neither do they have the capacity to step back and say, you know what, that was a little arrogant. I need to come down a little bit. I don't know what's got my head up in the clouds, but I need to be a little bit more humble. They don't have that ability. So to ask, I wonder if I'm a narcissist tells me that you're not. Now, some people may argue, which I hate, we're all on the narcissistic spectrum. I don't know if I agree with that. Some people also may argue maybe you're a little more open-minded because you're less narcissistic than that person over there. I don't know. Some people can argue that, but y'all's Royal Rose 22, I'm going to say that if you're asking me, and if you came to me for therapy, I would most likely tell you that if you're asking if you're a narcissist, you're probably not. You're probably not. They don't have self-awareness. Now, your question is fantastic. Do narcissistic people know they are one? No, most of them don't. Even the vulnerable narcissist, even the covert narcissist, the individual who may come off as fake, they don't know they're coming off as fake. They think that they've got you beat, that they're ahead of you, that you buy who they are selling to you. Most narcissists don't know they are. Now, they will go to therapy sometimes if they are forced to, if they're forced by law, a court order. If they're going to have to deal with a divorce, they may go to therapy. If they want to continue to date their partner, they may go to therapy. But there's often a motivation there. They're never going to go to therapy to try to understand who they are. Keep that in mind. It's a waste of time to them, Okay. Ellie Wynn, you're my last one before I go back to the content. Ellie Wynn, welcome. Thank you so much for that. Hope this is helpful to all of you. And thank you so much for that, Ellie Wynn. I appreciate you. Okay, let's go back to the content, guys. And then I'm going to go back and continue welcoming you. But let's talk about common behaviors. So here's what psychology says. Psychology says there are common behaviors when it comes to fake, phony, and genuine people. And if we're talking about a narcissistic individual, because they tend to be the most fake in the clinical realm, then common behaviors include pathological lying. And remember from my last live chat, I did highlight that pathological lying is different from compulsive lying. So pathological lying it tends to be sometimes goal-directed. I'll put it that way. Sometimes goal-directed. There's an end result that they're going after, and sometimes there isn't. They tend to lie constantly, easily. without any guilt. And sometimes that lying behavior is impulsive, but sometimes it's also manipulative. You know, so pathological lying. You may also see in these individuals inconsistent behaviors. Fake people can't stay one way because they don't know who they are in the first place. So you can't be consistent if you're acting. You know, you can't show continual behaviors that you should be showing if you don't know who you are. So most of these individuals tend to show inconsistent behaviors. They also tend to have, as Nancy said earlier, Nancy said that her mom has dark triad traits. I think you said, I'm going to put you up here for just a second, Nancy, because I did see you. Nancy says, my dark empathic mother was so good at being the victim. So for individuals who are fake, phony, ingenuine, narcissistic, they tend to have dark triad traits, and they tend to be a part of the group of individuals who are dark. I'll put it that way. So dark triad traits: Machiavellianism, narcissism, and psychopathy. Narcissists can be psychopaths. They can. And of course, the Machiavellianism is I get stimulation from doing things to other people, deceiving them, setting things up to harm them, seeing my, coworkers not get the job that they work so hard for because I said something about them in a meeting, So individuals who are ingenuine, fake, narcissistic, they tend to also show dark triad traits. They tend to also show histrionic and borderline traits. Borderline traits in these individuals would include impulsivity, sometimes suicidal and homicidal thoughts and self-harm. They tend to be very theatrical and dramatic, so that's the histrionic. And they constantly come across as shallow, especially with their emotions. Their emotions just seem so curated. Oh, it's time to cry. Boom. I'm sure you guys know people like that. Oh, it's time to get upset. I'm going to stand up and I'm going to start yelling. I'm going to start intimidating people with the tone of my voice. I'm going to pound on the table. I'm going to get this show started kind of disposition. Histrionic. Sometimes they can be. Emotional vampires. I mentioned that earlier. They also tend to show off a lot. Fake, narcissistic, ingenuine individuals. They're very, what we call egocentric. It's all about them. They're in a center and everything revolves around them. Very egocentric. They also have unrealistic perceptions of life. Now, psychology says that this is because of a few things, and I wrote it down because I can't remember all this. Okay. So here's what psychology says, and this tends to be really important in diagnosing individuals who are narcissistic, maybe even helping to diagnose people who seem very phony and ingenuine and fake and insecure. So psychology says that with these kind of individuals, those who have unrealistic perceptions of life, they tend to have an inflated or deflated sense of self. Can you imagine sitting with a phony, fake person, a narcissist, and they are repeatedly downing themselves? I'm not smart. I'm not attractive. My clothes look bad. I can't afford A, B, and C. My car is a mess. I'm never going to be married. I'm never going to have children. I'm never going to get a job promotion. I should have a degree, but I don't. I live in a bad house. Like constant self-deflation. That is also narcissistic sometimes. Why? Because the more negative they talk about themselves, the more attention they get from other people. And they're also fishing sometimes because they want you to say, oh, no, that's not true at all. No, you're going to be married. Don't say that about yourself. You're a wonderful person. You're very handsome. You're very pretty. You're smart. They want you to give them that, right? So sometimes they're fishing as well. But these individuals have an exaggerated self-appraisal. Okay, I'm going to make sure I put this article in the description box for you so you can have this list. The other thing that psychology focuses on with these individuals is what they call self-direction. They're seeking approval from other people. Everything is about them. Okay, everything revolves around them and ends up coming back around to them. self-direction. They tend to have, according to this article, high standards or too low of standards because of feelings of entitlement. Makes sense, guys? Sometimes these individuals have really high standards and they're too high because they think they're special. But then sometimes they can also have too low standards and they feel entitled to get what they want at all times. Okay. Empathy, lack of empathy. There's an impairment with empathy. Fake people and genuine people, unauthentic people, narcissists, there tends to be a lack of empathy. They don't think about what you need. They don't think about how they're hurting you. They also don't think about how they're impacting other people. It's always about themselves. They have an unrealistic perception of reality. And the last thing that this article focused on was intimacy with these individuals. Intimacy tends to be superficial and it serves to boost the self. It serves to boost the self. That's basically what psychology says. They have a very unrealistic perception of life. And this is what they operate from: inflated or deflated identity. They tend to seek approval that's unrealistic or unreasonable. They have an impairment in empathy, and their intimacy serves to boost themselves, and it tends to be superficial. So those are the common behaviors. Now, what's the problem? What's the problem with these individuals before I go back to the chat box? Psychology research in this area says these individuals tend to have what we call a conspicuous consumption to prove their social status. Here's what that means if we break it down. They consume things conspicuously. They consume material things for the purpose of looking like they are of a higher socioeconomic status, for intimidating other people, for buying things, including clothing and cars and homes and material, bracelets, rings, earrings, whatever they need to do to skew your perception of them. They don't want you to know that they are fake, ingenuine, narcissistic, deceptive. So what do? They go out and they conspicuously consume things so that they can then present themselves to the world. And again, that's that curated exterior. They're trying to curate an identity. And so they do that through consuming things that puts them at a certain socioeconomic status. They also have a lack of meaning in life, according to research studies on these individuals. They have a misdirection of purpose. They have no meaning. And when you don't have meaning, according to psychology, there's a higher chance for substance abuse, a higher chance for helplessness and hopelessness, and a higher chance of anxiety. So not only do they consume things to look bigger and better than they really are and to trick you into believing that they are better than they really are, but then they also lack meaning of life. And so all their energy is shallow. It goes to nothing. They may also experience what we call maladaptive narcissism. There's a concept in research on narcissism that says narcissism can be maladaptive and adaptive. Now, adaptive narcissism is, okay, I'm arrogant, but it got me into the NFL. Adaptive, right? It helped me succeed. I may be arrogant and self-consumed, but I became a politician. That's adaptive. Maladaptive is it doesn't serve you any purpose, right? You're narcissistic and you lose. It's maladaptive, Aggression and entitlement. Those are examples of maladaptive narcissism. They also have a pervasive pattern of behavior that relies on fantasy and untruths. Fantasy and untruths. This is research in psychology. They have a pervasive pattern of behavior. Fake people and genuine people, narcissists, they don't have the capacity to be genuine. So they often live in their little world in their mind, guys, right? They're in Alice in Wonderland somewhere, and they see themselves way differently than maybe you see them or I see them. They walk into a room and think they own the room, when the reality is that nobody's really paying attention to you, So they have a pervasive pattern of living in a fantasy. Okay, I also want to give you in a little bit here. I'm going to go to the chat box, give myself a little bit of a break. I do, when we come back to the content, give you some things, at least 9 things that you may want to consider in your own family or in a relationship with someone who may be like this. Okay, guys? Okay, let me look at your comments here. Marie B, hello and welcome to tonight's live chat. I'm glad to see you as always. Phoenix, so glad to see you. Happy Friday. Okay, Jessica J, hello and welcome back. And you're welcome. I hope this topic is helpful. I feel like you can go anywhere online and find research and psychology on narcissists, but you certainly can't find information on fake people, unauthentic people, and genuine people. It's just not that easy. Christina LZ, hello, good evening to you. Glad to see you. Longevity Rituals, glad to see you. Okay, Queen Common Sense says this is right on time as usual. That is really good to know. Good to know. I am dealing with a trigger regarding my mom's fakeness. Yeah. Yeah. One of the reasons why I work with kids and I love kids and teenagers is they are very authentic and they can read the room in a minute. I really like 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, because I've seen over the course of my career that they will quickly make a judgment on you. One glance and they've got you. They're either going to really like you or not like you at all. And they tend to be very, very self-perceptive. They get themselves and they feel things and they get it. They feel uncomfortable with you. They're not going to hide it. Don't touch me kind of disposition. I don't like you. I don't trust you. Or if kids like you, they're just all over you. They just respect you. So kids are very, very good barometers. Speaking of mothers, Queen Common Sense. Eartha Page says, I'm in the process of trying to leave my narc abuser. He will rage at me at night, and then the next day, I'm supposed to just get over it and be as fake as him. Absolutely. You know why? Because there's no empathy. There's no empathy. So let's say, for example, Eartha Page, that this abuser is really a narcissistic individual. The last thing they're going to do out of their own free will is apologize, to want to talk about the conflict, to want to talk about the conflict, or to want to work through it together. That's not what they do. No, what they do is they hurt you, belittle you, abuse you, manipulate you, right? And then they walk away and leave the damage. And so there you are sitting with all the damage, wondering which way to go. Remember, the most important thing that we need as humans to do anything in this world is self-awareness. And these individuals, Eartha Page, do not have self-awareness. T-Mac, hello. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. Starburst, thank you for that. James Eagleson, hello and welcome. Glad to see you. Says, what about men who get jealous of women and feel to attack them? What about men who get jealous of women and feel the need to attack them? Well, maybe that's what you meant. I'm not sure. James, can you clarify that for me? Because I can take that many different ways, and I may be reading too much into it. Can men become jealous of women? I'll throw that out there. Yes, I think they can, and it may come through a different way. Women who are jealous of women tend to be really ostracizing and socially manipulative and just mean and cruel and harsh and rude. Men who are jealous of women may be domestically violent. They may put you down. They may try to get a job promotion over you, whatever. I guess that's where you're coming from, James. So I'm going to leave it at that. I don't want to read too much into that. Marie B says, so true, Tamara. They come around just to see what you're doing and what you have, never for genuine concern of your well-being. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yeah. Ponytail says, from my experience, men are overt, women are covert. Sometimes. Okay, James says, why would a man get jealous of women if they feel more skilled, pretty, or get more attention? Okay, I'm trying to let this process. I'm trying to let this process. Why would a man get jealous of women if they feel more skilled, pretty, or get more attention? Well, men who are domestically violent, abusive, and traumatizing, it doesn't matter if they're more skilled, if they're pretty, handsome, or they get more attention, they're still going to be jealous hearted because jealousy and envy, if you were here watching my last live chat, jealousy and envy grows if it's not if it's, I'm going to say, recognized. If it's not recognized, it grows. And so men, even if they feel better than the woman, they can still become jealous. And most men who are like that are domestically violent. One Mecca armor. I probably messed that up. I'm so sorry. Glad you caught me again. Glad you're back on. Good to see you. Okay. Just looking for comments. A seat at the king's table with Tanisha. Hello and welcome to tonight's live chat. Glad to have you. Says, I've noticed the same with our women. I've always kept a small circle for the very reasons you mentioned. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I used to be the kind of girl growing up where, I loved just being with the guys. And that's the way that it was. No romance, no nothing. It was, I like being over there with Tommy because he's like a long lost cousin and brother. And we can have a conversation without all of the emotionality and the theatrics and the exaggerations and the need for attention. And yeah, Jessica J says, Tamara, your laugh gives me joy. Thank you for being so authentic. Thank you so much for that. That's so sweet. Thank you. Speaking of being genuine, I love kids. I love their laughs. Isn't it like the most pure, you know? Sunkiss Diva 01, hello and welcome back tonight. Glad to see you. Okay. Girl mom, let me highlight you. I feel like I always skip over you. Hello and welcome. Glad to see you tonight. Says, I think this happens when you like everyone. It's hard. I'm not sure what you mean by that one. I may have missed it. Forgive me if I have. Chris Awesome with more solutions. Thank you so much. I'm glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Okay. Okay, I'm still looking. Lisa A, hello and welcome. Lisa A says ripping off a narc's mask can be dangerous. Yes, it can. And let me just highlight this, guys. A narcissistic individual's mask being ripped off, as Lisa A puts it, can cause what we call a narcissistic injury. It kind of takes them back to a part of themselves that they try so very hard to bury, to hide, to make non-existent. And that is a very vulnerable, flimsy, weak, porous part of who they are. There's no self-awareness, there's no foundation, their values and ethics are incongruent with their behaviors. They don't want to live that. So when you attack a narcissist, and this is really important, when you attack a narcissist, their response is defensive, even if it may not be aggressive, right? Because a narcissist can be passive aggressive. A narcissist can also be very aggressive. It just depends on which one you're getting. But to tear off their mask is taking them to a very deep seated weakness and vulnerability that they try so very hard to hide. The way that I describe this to my clients who are in a relationship with narcissists or are married or in a family where there's a parent who's a narcissist, the way I explain it is like standing outside, okay, during the afternoon on a very cold day and stepping outside with no clothes on. That's almost the closest example that I can give you to the pain a narcissist feels when you show them up. Imagine that, being outside in the afternoon with no clothes on in the freezing cold. That is kind of the extent of the pain that they feel. And so when you snatch their mask off, that's basically where they're going. And so what do you think they're going to do, guys? They're going to hit back at you. They're going to manipulate you. They're going to try to get over on you. They're going to be ugly and mean to you. And you may see some things in there you never thought you would see, you know? Any of the narcissistic clients I've had in the past, they're triggering to me. So I end up referring, here you go. You're going to go somewhere else because they are tricky. They are complex, you know? Yeah. Jessica J says they waste your time with their pretentious behavior. It's exhausting. Yes, it is. And I mean extraordinarily exhausting. All right, let's get back into the content. So, what are you likely to see in these individuals? Those who are closest to you. Well, let's start with this. They have external and internal behaviors. External and internal behaviors or facades. Internal facade is I lie to myself. I lie to myself. I tell myself I'm smart. I tell myself I'm handsome or beautiful. I tell myself that I'm all of the above. Excuse me. I don't care what Kimmy over there says. I know I'm great. I'm wonderful. I'm special. I deserve. And even if an individual who is like this, guys, doesn't say those things, they most of the time show it in their behavior. They may not go through that internal experience of talking to themselves. They may just show it in their behavior. Walk into a restaurant, you didn't get what you wanted. I'm going to flip this whole place upside down. Or I'm going to go to a party and brag on myself all night. Or I'm going to make sure that I look the most dapper, the most beautiful, the most handsome at that party. Everybody is bound to walk up to me and show me how much they like me. So they have an internal facade. They lied to themselves. Their external facade or their exterior facade tends to be that of whatever they want you to buy from them. Fake people and genuine people, narcissists, whatever it is that they want you to buy, they will sell. And if they know that, hey, I'm going to that party and there's a lot of executives there, I'm going to make sure I dress the best. I'm going to make sure that I look up some words to use. I'm going to make sure that I understand all the norms and the rules of an important dinner so that I can look like I'm on top or I'm better than I really am. But when Thursday comes, I'm going to take all that off and just be myself, which isn't very nice. So they have interior and exterior facades. This is backed by research. They tend to have very fluid or porous boundaries. Fluid or porous boundaries. Narcissists do not know how to behave in a way that's genuine, right? So why would they have boundaries? They don't have them. They tend to be very flexible. They jump from one idea to the next, one behavior to the next, one disposition to the next. It's never just firm and healthy. I'll put it that way. They also tend to have a very deep-seated need for validation. Fake people and genuine people, narcissists, they tend to have a deep-seated need for validation. You can validate these kind of individuals by complimenting them a lot, giving them roles that they feel important having, inviting them to certain events. They have this deep-seated need for validation. They're also attention-seeking and controlling of space. All this space belongs to me. And I'm going to make sure this is how they think and they process things. I'm going to make sure that I come out on top because all of this space is mine to operate in. Nobody step on my shoes. That's basically how these kind of individuals think. They also have, and this is fake people too, not just narcissists. They also tend to have a fear of vulnerability or a fear of being found out, right? Let's say, for example, if you have I'm going to say a sibling like this, you have a sister or brother like this, they already have a fragile ego, right? And they're already trying to cover that and cloak that with ingenuine behaviors, dispositions, right? Things that just, they kind of attach to themselves to look important. Why would they share their deepest secrets with you? Why would they tell you that they need you, right? Why would they rely on you for anything? They don't want to show that they are vulnerable and needy. So they have this internalized fear of just being vulnerable, excuse me, guys, and also just being authentic. To them, being authentic is a weakness. And again, also too, they don't have self-awareness. So lack of self-awareness means I don't know who I am, which makes me vulnerable, and they have a fear of that. There's little to no moral compass. They don't have a moral compass. There's little to no moral compass, excuse me. And that's typically because they don't have a stable identity. It's unstable. The other thing, and I saw this the other day when I was looking up some of the research on this, these individuals, and I hate to throw this out here, but this is important. These kind of individuals may also have borderline personality symptoms or traits, because research suggests that there's a clear overlap in some areas between a narcissistic individual or a fake individual and genuine individual and borderline personality traits. There's an overlap in terms of sometimes impulsivity, suicidal thoughts, homicidal thoughts, and self injurious behaviors, reckless behaviors, and risk taking, and also stormy relationships. So, some research shows a very clear overlap between narcissism and borderline personality, and you may come in contact with an individual who has both of those things. Can you imagine that? Somebody who's self-centered, self-consumed, ingenuine, fake, and then also they're impulsive. Stormy relationships are a part of their lives at all times. They're suicidal, homicidal, and self-injurious. It's all a big tornado full of chaos and confusion, right, guys? They may also have an inflated view of themselves, that they constantly seek to be validated. They have to get that fake side of themselves validated. They kind of what's the word that I'm looking for? They blow themselves up. They try to appear a different way than they really are, and then they go after the people that can reinforce what they want you to believe about them. Does that make sense? They're exaggerated in what they think of themselves, and they go to the person who's going to validate that. And for them, that's an identity. That's why they're fake and genuine. And lastly, guys, research in psychology highlights that they tend to be very convinced of their specialness, even if they're a vulnerable narcissist, and they tend to put forth this humble, modest facade. On the inside is that secret spot that I said in the very beginning of this live chat. In their heart, it's a secret place in their heart. They believe that they are special, and you better cater to that and validate it. Tomorrow, guys, I'm going to be talking about vulnerable narcissists, and I will highlight to you how these individuals sneak into your life, how they manipulate things all around you, and how they can actually destroy you, especially if they're a spouse or a family member. So stay tuned with me for tomorrow's live chat. All right, guys, we're getting close to wrap up time here at 8 o'clock. Let me go back to the chat box, engage with you a little bit, and then we can sign off. All right. Sunkiss Diva 01. I need my glasses. I don't know if you saw me squinting, guys. I think age is coming up on me. Sunkiss Diva 01 says, my egg donor mother was a covert malignant narcissist. I believe the female ones far worse, because women are more calculating. They need to be avoided at all costs. Yeah, that's a possibility too. I also think women are more calculating. They also tend to be a little bit more socially astute than men. Men tend to be very just so. You know what I mean? Oh, hey, bud, let's go out and get a beer. Whereas women are the shallow, jealous ones. They stand off. They look you up and down. You can see all their thoughts about you. Then they develop an attitude. Then they want to attack you. And next thing you know, they're fighting you and competing with you. And you're just sitting there like, why are we doing all this? Do we really need to do this? So I agree. It's sad, but I agree. Yeah. Sun and Sunflower says narcissists definitely act differently with different people. Yeah, they do. Yeah. Ellie Wen says they want to battle. They fake nice to bait for rage release. Oh, maybe that's an interesting concept. I will say there is some research that suggests that these kind of individuals, they are constantly wearing their emotions on their sleeves. They tend to be very, what's the word I'm looking for? Defensive. They're very defensive because they know who they are at the core of who they are. Fake people and genuine people, they're trying to hide something. That's why they're fake, right? They don't know how to be genuine. I have never, and I'm sure you guys can relate to this, I have never liked an individual who can smile in your face. They have a fantastic smile, so you always think it's genuine. But then they turn the corner and they're talking about you, gossiping, stalking you, right? Trying to figure out who you are, saying things behind your back that's not true, stirring rumors, right? They are the epitome of darkness and evil. But because they have a very genuine appearing face, smile, demeanor, you would never think that of them. I think those are the worst fake people in the world. It's hard to see on their face who they really are. Sana or Sana, hello and welcome. I apologize for that. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. Literally love that photo. Looks like me in the morning. That's me in the morning, guys. It really is. It's held down tonight by a ponytail, but that's me in the morning. I'm just kidding, guys. Sana or Sana says, I know a narcissist who loves to purport they have empathy. They don't. It's all performative. Yeah, sometimes they will do that. I love donating to charities. Okay, thanks for letting me know you donate to charities. There are some people that do that. You know, they throw out there, you know, I donate to charities, or they throw out there, you know, my uncle is the executive director of A, B, and C. And you're like, oh, okay, what does that have to do with this conversation? So they will do things like that. You're right. You're right. All right, guys, I'm still looking for comments. Jessica J says they have no moral compass and are oblivious to the needs of others. Yep. It's very easy for a narcissist to spread a rumor about you and tell it to your boss. It's very easy for a narcissist who wants to be perceived as genuine and loving and kind to somehow spread something about you that ends up getting you fired. And guess what? They're going to go to work the next day and feel just fine. That's basically how they behave. Lisa A says there's got to be something in it for them. Sometimes. Yep. As a matter of fact, I'm going to change that. Not sometimes, most of the time, Lisa A, you're right. Yeah, there's got to be something in it for them. A narcissist, a fake person, a genuine person, they're not going to do something unless there is a social reward of some kind. So you're right about that. QC Speaks Truth. Hello. I remember you, but you're under a different screen name. So glad to see you. Haven't seen you in a while. Shay Wallace says, welcome, by the way. Shay Wallace says, my covert narc is neurotic as heck, and he's got clinical depression, and he sure wouldn't get help for the entire 13 years. Now he wants to because I want out. Well, of course. Of course, that's how it goes. Shay Wallace, I'm glad you brought this up. That's how it goes. The only time a narcissistic individual is going to come to treatment is if they're going to lose that thing that's going to cause people to see them in a negative light, right? Losing you, getting a divorce, being broken up with. They're not going to pull the trigger on that. They're going to go to therapy or go to a doctor and try to work things out. The reality is because they're narcissistic, because they're fake and phony and genuine, they're not going to work anything out. The whole goal of going to therapy or seeing a doctor or talking to a therapist is to keep what they don't want to lose, because to lose is to say something is wrong with them. They're not going to perceive it as you're the problem. It's kind of this indirect way that they see themselves now. I'm the issue. Well, I think I'm just going to go to therapy and make sure she doesn't break up with me or divorce me, because then I have to deal with people wondering what I did wrong. You know, we're going to talk more about that tomorrow night. I think it's going to be helpful. Jeremy Robinson, hello and welcome back. Glad to see you tonight. Says, I once researched, am I a narcissist? And I remember reading that narcissists do not seek help. There you go. I love that. You're right. Narcissists do not seek help unless, keep this in mind, unless there's something in it for them. That's the only way they're going to pursue treatment. The moment I recognize that I'm treating a narcissist, I cut therapy. But because here's the thing, you're in therapy for some purpose. Is it to prevent a divorce? Is it to prevent being fired? Did the court order you to treatment? Were you hospitalized and you have to do this as part of the treatment plan? Why are you here? Becomes my question. And then, therapy has to take a drastic turn at that point. Nyan says, Vault, I hope I said that correctly. I'm sorry if I didn't. Welcome. Glad to have you. We're going to wrap up here in just a second, guys. Yes, Shay Wallace is very creepy. I agree. Anastasia V, I hope I said that correctly. Welcome to tonight's live chat. Says, this sounds a lot like my mom and aunt. They fake this perfect sense of self and super critical of everyone else. Yeah. Yeah, because a narcissist or an individual who is not genuine, they tend to have unrealistically high expectations. And if you don't supersede their expectation, you're a nobody. That's how they see it. Thank you, Jessica J. I'm glad it's hitting home. Okay. I'm just looking for comments, guys. We're going to wrap up. Boots are made for walking. Oh, that's so cute. Says, in a sense, they are hypocrites. They are. Yes, they are. Yep. I once had a client whose mother was a narcissist. And the first thing that she would say to her daughter, and her daughter would come into sessions with me. She was 20 years old. She would come into sessions with me and just cry and cry and cry. And here's what she would tell me her mom would say. And then sometimes she would show me the text messages. Her mom was 295 pounds. Okay. She was on Jenny Craig when Jenny Craig was a whole big thing. The number one thing she said to my client, who was 20, just went through a breakup, just lost her job, dropped out of college. She was just so depressed. Here's what the mom said to her. You need to lose a few pounds. Mind you, mom was 290. Okay. And showed a side by side of the weight she was losing with Jenny Craig versus, where she was in her past. And she said to my client in a text message once, and, just in conversation, you need to lose weight. You need to get back on Jenny Craig. You're getting a little over the top in your weight. And as soon as the daughter, my client, would show me a picture of the mom, I would be like, what? So you're right. They are hypocrites. They tend to be very critical of others, oftentimes because they are critical of themselves. Keep that in mind. I'm going to be very humble here and say I am not the expert on narcissism. Have I been trained to understand it? Yes. Have I treated them in individual sessions and family sessions? Yes, they're very difficult to deal with. Do I have narcissistic parents in my practice at times? 100%. Who is the expert, the top-notch expert when it comes to narcissism? Dr. Ramani. So you want to make sure to go check her out if you haven't already. Some of you do share content because Dr. Ramani and I tend to have quite similar topics unknowingly. So YouTube kind of puts us side by side when it comes to content. We both kind of dominate these topics. But Dr. Ramani, she's awesome. So I'm sure a lot of you go watch her page as well. But that's where you're going to get some information on how covert and overt narcissists behave. But a lot of times these kind of individuals are critical of themselves, and that's why they're super critical of you and others. You'll definitely get more information on that from Dr. Ramani. A concerned mother, hello and welcome. Glad to have you tonight. I don't remember seeing you, so welcome. We're going to wrap up here in 5 minutes. A concerned mother says, I always knew my mom had issues. She's not very covert about her narcissism, but I just recently came to the realization that my stepmother is a covert narcissist. My dad has a type. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm also going to go over that tomorrow night with you. What are the types of narcissists? I also want to give you a clinical definition of narcissism, because here's what happens, guys. You go online, you Google narcissism, and narcissism is in every blog and article on Google, on Yahoo, on Chrome browser. You could just Google the topic of narcissism for days. That, to me, tends to confuse a lot of people and you don't get the clinical version. So tomorrow night, I will highlight what's clinical narcissism, because narcissism, again, guys, overlaps with borderline personality. It overlaps with psychopathy or sociopathy. It also overlaps with obsessive compulsive personality disorder. And it overlaps with, you ready for this? Bipolar disorder. So sometimes you may think you're looking at a narcissist when you're really looking at somebody with borderline personality disorder. You may think you're looking at a narcissist when the reality is you're really dealing with somebody who is bipolar. So I will clarify that tomorrow night as well. Okay. Sun and Sunflower says, are some narcissistic people hoarders? Yes, that's the short answer. She goes on to say, I found my ex-husband was a hoarder and much later found out his mother was one. They always were buying things, then complain of being broke. Yeah. Well, again, narcissistic personality disorder overlaps with obsessive compulsive personality disorder. And sometimes people who have obsessive compulsive personality disorder, sometimes they hoard. And they keep hoarding and getting things, you know. Remember conspicuous consumption. That was something we mentioned earlier. Conspicuous consumption. The individual conspicuously consumes. Why? Because it puts them up here on the status level. I have that BMW. I have that other vehicle over there. I also have that house. I also have another house in Florida. You know, it kind of gives them status. All right, guys, you have so many awesome comments. Michelle, Lynn, hello and welcome. I haven't seen you before, so welcome. Glad to have you. Q Quitta Ward 1, hello and welcome. Glad to have you tonight. I'm just saying hello before we go. Poppy Wheeze, hello, says, hi, was this originally titled The Psychology of Sneaky People? Yes, it was. Yes, it was. I changed the title because the algorithm, okay, is giving when it comes to the title that I now have it at. So that is why. Part of the issue is you guys can't benefit from this content if my content is titled a certain way. So that's why this title was changed. Oh boy, I'm going to read this. Y'all's Royal Rose 22 says, if you are some, how connected to a narc can it rub off on you until you get away or healed? Okay, I'm confused at that, but I also hear what you're saying. Can somebody's narcissism or ingenuity rub off on you until you get away or have healed? Yes. That's the short answer. Yes. Because here's what happens. A narcissist almost unknowingly can push you into a corner where you then say, I don't know how to defend myself other than to promote myself, to rise above, to highlight my own accomplishments, to prove that I'm beautiful, to prove that I'm handsome, right? So then you kind of become you become a part of that warped reality. I'll give you an example. Let's say, for example, you have married a narcissist. Your husband, I'm going to use this as an example from a husband and a wife. Your husband, for example, has divorced you, doesn't want anything to do with you. You feel deflated, despondent, depressed, overwhelmed, angry, betrayed, invalidated. We could go down a whole list of emotions. You feel all of that, right? And your narcissistic husband has already moved on to a new woman who is beautiful, smart. The list goes on, right? So you feel like there's a mismatch between you and your ex-husband's new partner. How do you heal from that? How do you kind of bounce back? Well, maybe you go on Instagram and post a bunch of pictures of yourself in some lingerie. Maybe you go on Twitter or X, whatever they call it now, and you have conversations with quote unquote celebrities so that you could say that you talk to, who's a celebrity, guys? I don't know. One of the celebrities. Jennifer Garner, that just came to mind. You know, maybe you want to brag that you had a little bit of an online conversation with her. Or she responded to one of your questions, right? Maybe you go on Instagram and show a little cleavage, or, you know, get longer extensions, or maybe you put on some extra makeup, right? Over time, those deep-seated desires and needs to bounce back from the humiliation of the divorce can cause you, for example, to live in a warped world where, yes, you become so self-consumed that now you could be tagged a narcissist. Does that make sense, guys? So I hope I answered that, y'all's Royal Rose 22. I hope that makes sense. But yes. Yes, it can cause you to harden your heart. That's another thing you were asking. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It's self-protection. Self-protection. Karen Kilbane, I probably messed it up. I apologize. Welcome back tonight. Says, if the cruel narcissist wants to get better and get help, but cannot make much progress, is there any? No, not at all. If you have a cruel narcissist who is a part of your life, and they want to get better, how did you put this, and get help, but they cannot make much progress, is there any? No, because a narcissist has a really hard time, with self-awareness. And so without self-awareness, there really isn't much getting better. Now, those who are better experts than me on narcissism and narcissistic relationships may say that there might be a breakthrough with certain tools that are used, or there may be a breakthrough if there's some kind of awareness that's been obtained in some way, or if the narcissist can, find some benefit to getting better. There may be some progress there, but I tend to be of the belief it's a waste of time. It's a waste of time. Hive Mind Denied. Hello and welcome to tonight's live chat. We're supposed to be wrapping up here in 2 seconds. Says he could be married to his mommy. That will make him rage at you. Oh, you must be commenting on somebody else. Maybe. M.N. Odell, hello and welcome. Yes, they do lack positive, deep emotions. They can't experience it. It's non-existent. All right, guys, there was so many people on here tonight. I also see Sean Hammer. Hello and welcome. Glad to have you. Courtney Fraser. Hello and welcome. For those of you that I wasn't able to get to, come back tomorrow. This is going to be part 2. Okay. Tomorrow, I'm going to break down overt, covert narcissism, the communal narcissist, the antagonistic narcissist. Then I'm going to also break down how they impact you, how they can turn your life around for the worse, how to escape them and why. And I'm also going to draw some connections between toxic family dynamics and vulnerable narcissists. So come back tomorrow, guys. We're going to talk more. Leave some comments in the comment section for me. Over the next 2 hours, I'm going to be taking a break. But after that, I'm going to go back and chit chat with you and answer some questions. I hope this was helpful. Hope you have a wonderful Friday. I'll see you tomorrow. Good night, guys.